The stars looked the same as they had 3,000 years ago. Dr. Zephyra. Keth pressed her blue-scaled hand against the cold metal wall and stared out at the endless space beyond. Her large, dark eyes reflected the distant suns that dotted the galaxy like tiny diamonds scattered on black cloth. Still nothing, she whispered to herself. For 3,000 years, the galaxy had been quiet, too quiet. The 12 species of the Galactic Confederation lived in peace, traded with each other, and explored new worlds. Everything was perfect. Everything was boring, but Zephyr remembered the old stories. Stories about a species that had once ruled the stars. A species that had built impossible machines and traveled between galaxies like stepping stones. A species that had vanished without warning, leaving behind only ruins and mysteries. The humans. Most people thought the humans had died out long ago. Others believed they had become gods and left the physical world behind. The Confederation Council said it did not matter. The humans were gone, and that was enough. Zephyra disagreed. She walked through the research station's empty hallways. Her footsteps echoed in the silence. The station orbited a dead world called Kepler 442b. Once, this planet had been green and alive. The humans had lived here. Now it was nothing but rock and dust. The Confederation had built this research station to study human ruins. They wanted to understand human technology so they could copy it. Most of the good stuff had already been taken. What remained were broken pieces and empty buildings. But Zephyra was not looking for technology. She was looking for answers out in her laboratory. Hundreds of human artifacts covered every surface. Broken computers, strange tools, pieces of metal with symbols no one could read. She had spent 20 years collecting them. Her colleagues thought she was wasting her time. The humans are gone, Zephyra, her supervisor had told her last month. Focus on something useful. But tonight was different. Tonight, she had found something new. The artifact sat on her desk under a bright light. It looked like a simple black cube, no bigger than her fist. She had discovered it deep underground, in a room that her sensors said should not exist. The room had been perfectly preserved, as if time had stopped inside it. The cube felt warm to the touch. Sometimes it hummed softly. When she ran her scanner over it, the readings made no sense. According to her instruments, the cube was made of materials that could not exist. Zephyra picked up the cube and turned it over in her hands. One side had a small depression, perfectly shaped like a human handprint. She had tried pressing her own hand against it, but nothing happened. Her hand was too big, and her fingers had claws instead of the soft flesh that humans once possessed. What were you trying to tell us? She asked the empty air. The cube pulsed with a faint blue light. Zephyra nearly dropped it. In all her months of study, the cube had never done that before. She placed it carefully back on the desk and stepped away. Light pulsed again, brighter this time. Her computer screens flickered. Numbers and symbols began appearing on them, scrolling too fast for her to read. The symbols looked familiar. She had seen them in other human ruins, carved into walls and etched into metal plates. Computer, record everything, she said quickly. Data stream continued for exactly 67 seconds, then stopped. The cube returned to its normal dark state. The computer screens went blank. Zephyra stared at the cube for a long moment. Then she began typing commands into her computer, trying to recover the data that had just appeared. Most of it was corrupted or incomplete. But buried in the stream of symbols, she found something that made her breath catch in her throat. A star. Map. It showed the locations of hundreds of objects scattered throughout the galaxy. Each object was marked with the same symbol she had seen on the cube. The locations were not random. They formed a pattern like a vast network covering every arm of the galaxy. And according to the map, there were objects hidden near every major world in the Confederation. Impossible, she whispered. If the map was real, then the humans had left behind far more than anyone realized. They had not simply vanished. They had prepared for something. Zephyra looked closer at the map. Each marked location had a number. Next to it, the numbers were counting down, all reaching 0 at the same point in time. Time that was now less than 50 years away. She cross-referenced the countdown with the Confederation's astronomical calendar. The numbers pointed to a rare cosmic event. Every 3,087 years, the galaxy's central black hole aligned with certain stars in a way that created unique gravitational effects. The next alignment was scheduled to happen in 43 years. What happens then? She asked the cube. It remained silent. Zephyra spent the rest of the night analyzing the data. The more she studied it, the more convinced she became that the humans had not died or ascended to godhood. They had done something else entirely. They had hidden. The star map showed the locations of what could only be shelters or ships. Massive constructions hidden in empty space, disguised as asteroids or hidden in the shadows of dead planets. If she was right, millions of humans might still be alive, sleeping somewhere in the dark between the stars, waiting for the right moment to wake up. As dawn broke over the research station, Zephyra made a decision. She would present her findings to the Confederation Council. They needed to know what she had discovered. The humans were not gone. They were sleeping, and something was going to wake them up very soon. The first sign that something was wrong came from the edge of the galaxy. Captain Voss Carolyn was drinking his morning tea when the emergency alarm began screaming throughout his ship. The Confederation patrol vessel Starlight had been monitoring the outer rim for 15 years. In all that time, the most exciting thing they had found was a broken asteroid miner. "Captain, you need to see this," his communications officer called out. Voss set down his cup and walked to the main screen. What he saw there made his blood run cold. Ships, hundreds of them, emerging from the dark space beyond the galaxy's edge. They were unlike anything he had ever seen. Black as midnight, shaped like enormous insects, with long metal arms that reached out like hungry claws. "Are they responding to our signals?" Voss asked. "No, sir. They are not responding to anything. They are just coming." Voss watched as the alien fleet moved toward the first Confederation world on the rim. The planet Telia Prime had 2 million people living on it. Mining families mostly. Good, honest folks who had never hurt anyone. "Send a message to Confederation Command," Voss ordered. "Tell them we have visitors. And I do not think they came here to trade." The message took 6 hours to reach the capital world of New Geneva. By then, it was too late for Telia Prime. The black ships surrounded the planet like a swarm of insects around a piece of fruit. They did not fire weapons. They did not demand surrender. They simply landed. Within hours, every communication from Telia Prime stopped. Admiral Rebecca Santa sat in the emergency meeting room deep under New Geneva's surface. Around the circular table, the leaders of all 12 Confederation species argued in 6 different languages. Fear filled the room like smoke. "We need to send the fleet," demanded General Thrax, his reptilian scales turning red with anger. "Hit them before they can spread." "With what?" asked Chancellor Erie, her insect-like wings buzzing with stress. "Our scouts report thousands of those ships. We have maybe 300 vessels in the entire Confederation Navy." Admiral Santos rubbed her tired eyes. At 68 years old, she had seen 3 wars and countless smaller conflicts. But nothing like this. What do we know about them? She asked Dr. Marsh, the Confederation's chief scientist. Dr. Marsh, a tall creature with gray skin and no mouth, spoke through the translation device on his chest. "Very little. They do not match any known species in our databases. Their technology appears to be organic in nature, grown rather than built." And Admiral ... double quotes. "What? They are consuming the planet." The room fell silent. "Consuming?" whispered Chancellor Erie. "Our long-range sensors show that Telia Prime's mass is decreasing. They are breaking down the planet itself and absorbing the materials. The population appears to have been converted. Converted into what? More of them. Admiral Santos felt sick. In her 68 years, she had never imagined anything like this. The Confederation had always assumed that if hostile aliens ever appeared, they would want to conquer worlds, not eat them. How long until they reach the next system? She asked. At their current speed, 14 days. 14 days. That was not enough time to evacuate 3 billion people from the Nexus colony. It was not enough time to mount a defense. It was barely enough time to panic. Options? Admiral Santos asked. We could try to negotiate, suggested Ambassador Kell, his blue tentacles switching nervously. With what? They have not responded to any communication attempts. We could retreat to the core worlds and make our stand there. And abandon billions of people? The arguments continued for hours. Every suggestion seemed hopeless. The Confederation had grown soft during 3,000 years of peace. Their ships were designed for exploration and trade, not war. Their weapons were meant to stop pirates and asteroid storms, not planet-eating monsters. Finally, old Dr. Yenna spoke up. She was the oldest member of the Council, nearly 200 years old, and had spent her life studying ancient history. There is one option we have not discussed, she said quietly. The room turned to look at her. The human weapons. Uncomfortable silence followed. Everyone knew about the human weapons. Deep under the surface of several worlds, the Confederation had found bunkers filled with devices they did not understand. Weapons so powerful that the Confederation had agreed never to use them. That is impossible, General Thrax said. We have tried for centuries to activate those systems. They do not respond to us. Because we have been trying the wrong approach, Dr. Yenna replied. We have been trying to command them. But what if we need to ask them? Admiral Santos frowned. What do you mean? The humans built those weapons during their final years. They knew something was coming. What if the weapons were designed to activate only when the threat appeared? It was a desperate idea. But desperate times called for desperate measures. 3 days later, Admiral Santos stood in the deepest bunker on New Geneva, 3 miles below the surface. The room around her hummed with power that had been sleeping for 3,000 years. Banks of machines covered the walls. Their surfaces covered with symbols. No one could read. At the center of the room sat a simple chair, clearly built for a human. Above it, a helmet hung from metal cables waiting. Are you sure about this? Asked Dr. Marsh. Admiral Santos was not sure about anything. But with each passing hour, the black ships moved closer to more Confederation worlds. Reports came in of entire systems going dark. The enemy was not just consuming planets now. They were consuming stars. Do it, she said. Dr. Marsh activated the connection. Power flowed through the ancient systems. The helmet lowered onto Admiral Santos' head. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the universe exploded into light. Admiral Santos found herself floating in a space that was not space, surrounded by information that flowed like water. She could see the entire galaxy spread out before her, could feel the pulse of every living world, and she could sense them. The black ships. They called themselves the Devourers, and they had traveled between galaxies for millions of years, consuming everything in their path. But more than that, she could feel something else. Something vast and sleeping, hidden in the dark spaces between the stars. Something that had been waiting for exactly this moment. The human weapons were not weapons at all. They were an alarm clock. Admiral Santos tried to scream as the activation sequence began, but she had no voice in this place. Energy flowed through systems she did not understand, reaching out across the galaxy to touch hidden relays that had waited 3,000 years for this moment. The signal that went out was not a call for help. It was a wake-up call. And across the galaxy, in the dark spaces between the stars, Millions of sleeping humans began to stir. Sarah Chun Okafor opened her eyes for the first time in 3,000 years. The first thing she noticed was that she was not alone. Thousands of voices whispered in her mind, all speaking at once but somehow not confusing her. She could feel her crew waking up around her, their thoughts joining the growing chorus. The second thing she noticed was that she was angry. Very angry. Sarah sat up in her hibernation pod and looked around the vast chamber. Row after row of sleeping pods stretched into the distance, each one beginning to glow as its occupant awakened. The ship's lights came on automatically, sensing movement after millennia of darkness. "Status report," she said to the empty air. The ship's artificial intelligence responded immediately, its voice unchanged after 3,000 years of silence. "Welcome back, Admiral Chun Okafor. All systems are operational. Current date is June 16th, 2025 by the old calendar. You have been in hibernation for 3,047 years. Why are we awake? The cosmic alignment is not for another 40 years. Emergency wake-up protocol initiated by external signal. Analyzing. The signal originated from human installation on New Geneva. Confederation forces activated the alarm system." Sarah felt her anger grow. The Confederation was not supposed to touch human technology. That had been the agreement. Humanity would sleep, and the younger species would have time to grow and learn on their own. "Show me what happened," she ordered. Images flowed directly into her mind. Not through her eyes, but through the neural link that connected her to every human ship in the galaxy. She watched the Devourers consume Telia Prime. She saw the Confederation's desperate attempts to fight them. She felt Admiral Santos' terror as the human systems activated. "They woke us up because they are scared," said Commander Jackson Park as he climbed out of his own pod. Like Sarah, he looked exactly as he had 3,000 years ago. The hibernation process had not just preserved them. It had improved them. "Worse than that," Sarah replied. "They have been playing with our toys." Through the neural network, she could feel the awakening of humanity across the galaxy. Ship after ship came online, their crews emerging from sleep with the same mixed feelings of anger and disappointment. They had left behind a galaxy full of young species with bright potential. They had returned to find those species squabbling over scraps of human technology like children fighting over toys. But there was something else. Something that made Sarah pause. Show me the archaeological records. What has the Confederation learned about us?" Data flowed through her consciousness. Most of it was exactly what she expected. The Confederation had found human ruins, taken whatever they could understand, and ignored the rest. They had built their entire civilization on copied human technology, never truly understanding how it worked. But there was one exception. Double quotes Dr. Zafira Kef, Sarah said out loud. "The Altarian archaeologist," Commander Park confirmed. "She has been studying us for 20 years, not our technology, us." Sarah reviewed Dr. Kef's research through the network. Unlike the others, this alien had tried to understand humanity itself. She had collected art, personal items, family photographs. She had tried to learn human languages and decode human writing. She had treated humans like people, not like a source of useful gadgets. She found the data cache on Kepler 442b, Sarah noted. 3 days ago. Her discovery of the star map may have saved the galaxy. Sarah raised an eyebrow. How, if she had not been studying our ruins so carefully, the Confederation would never have known to look for our installations. They would not have found the alarm system. We would still be sleeping while the Devourers consumed everything. That was unexpected. Around the chamber, more humans were emerging from their pods. But these were not the humans who had gone to sleep 3,000 years ago. The hibernation process had changed them. Their bodies were stronger, their minds sharper. Most importantly, they were connected. every human in the galaxy now shared a single consciousness network. They were still individuals with their own thoughts and personalities, but they could communicate instantly across any distance. They could share knowledge, coordinate actions, and work together as a single organism when needed. Fleet status? Sarah asked. The answer came from hundreds of ship commanders simultaneously. The human fleet was vast beyond imagination. Not just warships, but mobile cities, research stations, factories, and worlds. Everything humanity needed to survive and thrive, hidden in the dark spaces between the stars. "All ships report ready, Admiral," came the collective response. Sarah walked to the bridge of her flagship, the Prometheus Unbound. Through the massive windows, she could see other human ships coming online. Lights appeared in the darkness as engines that had slept for millennia roared back to life, but something was wrong with their technology. It looked different than she remembered. AI explained the modifications. During hibernation, automated systems continued research and development. Current human technology is approximately 400 years more advanced than when you entered. Hibernation. Sarah smiled for the first time since waking up. Humanity had not just been sleeping, they had been growing. "Show me what we can do now." The demonstration was brief but impressive. Human ships could now exist in multiple dimensions. At the same time, their weapons could manipulate space and time itself. Their defenses could turn enemy attacks into harmless light shows. But more than that, humanity had developed something new. Something the galaxy had never seen before. "Compassion warfare," Sarah said as she reviewed the new capabilities. "Yes, Admiral. Instead of simply destroying enemies, we can now convert them. Remove their aggression, restore their individuality, give them the choice to become something better." It was a very human solution to an inhuman problem. "Contact Dr. Keth," Sarah ordered. "Tell her we need to talk." "She is currently in a Confederation holding cell, Admiral. Her superiors did not believe her warnings about us." Sarah's anger flared. Again, the one alien who had tried to understand humanity was being punished for it. "Then I think it is time for a rescue mission," she said. "And maybe a conversation with the Confederation Council about proper manners." Through the neural network, she felt the agreement of every human in the galaxy. They had been awakened rudely, their sleep interrupted by careless children playing with dangerous toys. The Devourers were consuming worlds, the Confederation was falling apart, and the one alien who deserved their respect was sitting in a jail cell. It was time for humanity to remind the galaxy why they had been the apex species. But first, they would save Dr. Keth, anyone who cared enough to preserve human art and photographs, instead of just stealing human weapons, deserved better treatment. "Fleet, prepare for emergence," Sarah commanded. "Time to introduce ourselves to our new neighbors." Across the galaxy, human ships began moving toward Confederation space. The giants were awake, and they were not happy about being disturbed, but they were still human enough to help those who deserved it. The rescue of Dr. Zephra Keth took exactly 3 minutes. The human ship Ghost Walker appeared inside the Confederation prison without triggering a single alarm. One moment the hallway was empty. The next moment, a tall human woman in dark armor stood outside Zephra's cell. "Dr. Keth," the woman said politely. "My name is Captain Maria Santos. Admiral Chun Okafor would like to speak with you." Zephra pressed herself against the back wall of her cell. She had spent the last week trying to convince the Confederation Council that the humans were still alive. Now one was standing in front of her, and she was terrified. "You are real," she whispered, "very real. And we are grateful for your work preserving our history. Not many people would have cared about our art and photographs." Captain Santos touched the cell door. It simply dissolved, the metal turning to dust and blowing away. "How did you do that?" "We learned some new tricks while we were sleeping. Will you come with us? We promise you will be safe." Zephyra looked at the dissolved door, then at the human who stood calmly waiting for her answer. 3,000 years of mystery stood before her, offering friendship instead of conquest. "Yes," she said. Meanwhile, Admiral Sarah Chunokafer stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the Devourer fleet consume another Confederation world. The black ships moved like a disease across the galaxy, turning everything they touched into more copies of themselves. "They have consumed 47 worlds in the past month," reported Commander Park. "The Confederation has lost 60% of their fleet trying to stop them." Analysis? The Devourers are a hive mind. Every ship, every creature, every converted person shares the same consciousness. They cannot understand individual thought or personal choice. That is their strength. "And their weakness," Sarah added. Through the neural network, she felt the agreement of her species. Humanity had always been different. Where other species saw order and unity, humans saw tyranny. Where others saw efficiency, humans saw the death of creativity. "Begin Operation Shepherd," Sarah ordered. Across the galaxy, human ships moved into position. But they did not attack the Devourer fleet directly. Instead, they began broadcasting something the galaxy had never seen before. Ideas. Captain Elena Rodriguez piloted her stealth ship through the heart of a Devourer swarm. Her ship existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously, making it invisible to the alien sensors. But she was not hiding from them. She was talking to them. "Broadcasting on all frequencies," she reported to the human network. "Transmitting concepts of individual choice, personal freedom, and self-determination directly into their communication systems." The effect was immediate. The Devourer ships began to slow down, their perfect formations breaking apart as individual pilots started asking questions they had never thought before. "Why do we consume?" Broadcast one Devourer ship suddenly. "What is the purpose of endless hunger?" "Because the Queen commands it," responded another ship automatically. "But what if the Queen is wrong?" The question spread through the Devourer network like a virus. For the first time in their species' history, individual Devourers began to think for themselves. Dr. Zephyra Keth stood next to Admiral Chunokafor on the bridge of the Prometheus Unbound, watching the chaos unfold on the main screen. Devourer ships were breaking away from their fleets, some attacking their former companions, others simply stopping in space as if confused. "You are giving them free will," Zephyra said in amazement. "We are giving them a choice," Sarah corrected. "What they do with it is up to them." "But how?" "Their minds are connected across light years." "How can you break that connection?" Sarah smiled. "We are not breaking it. We are improving it. Watch." On the screen, a group of Devourer ships that had broken away from the main fleet began working together in a new way. Instead of moving as one mind controlling many bodies, they moved as many minds choosing to cooperate. "We call it the Democratic Network," Commander Park explained. "Every individual keeps their connection to the group, but they get to vote on what the group does. It is like our neural network, but with more arguing." The transformation spread rapidly through the Devourer ranks. Ships that had been mindless eating machines began to develop personalities. Some chose to continue consuming, but now they asked permission from planets first. Others decided to try farming instead of hunting. A few even asked to join the human fleet, but the original Devourer Queen was not happy about these changes. "She is mobilizing her core fleet," reported the human monitoring stations. 50,000 ships heading directly for the source of the transmissions. "Good," Sarah said calmly. "Bring her to us." The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It was not fought in normal space, but across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Human ships phased in and out of reality, attacking from angles that should not have existed. But more than that, the humans fought with weapons that changed their enemies instead of destroying them. When Devourer plasma beams struck human ships, The energy was absorbed and transformed into art. Beautiful light sculptures bloomed where the attacks hit, turning deadly weapons into creative expression. When human ships fired back, their weapons carried information instead of death. Every shot infected Devourer ships with new ideas about cooperation, creativity, and choice. The Devourer Queen herself appeared on the battlefield in a ship the size of a small moon. Her voice boomed across all communication channels. "What are you doing to my children?" she demanded. Sarah responded personally, her words carried by quantum transmitters directly into the Queen's consciousness. "We are setting them free," she said simply. "Just like we did for ourselves 3,000 years ago. Free, they belong to me. They are part of me. They can still be part of you. But now they choose to be, instead of being forced." The Queen attacked with everything she had. Weapons that could crack planets, energy beams that could cook stars, gravity manipulators that could fold space itself. The human fleet absorbed it all, transforming every attack into something beautiful and harmless. "You cannot win," the Queen raged. "I am eternal, I am unity, I am perfection." "You are alone," Sarah replied sadly. "And that is the one thing we cannot cure." The final phase of the battle began when human medical ships approached the Queen's vessel. Instead of weapons, they carried healing technology developed during humanity's long sleep. "What are you doing?" the Queen asked, her voice now uncertain instead of angry. "Giving you the same choice we gave your children," Sarah explained. "You can stay as you are, alone and hungry forever. Or you can try something new." "What is the new thing?" "Friendship." Dr. Zafira Keth watched in amazement as the human medical ships began working on the Queen's massive vessel. Instead of attacking it, they were healing it, repairing damage that had been accumulating for millions of years of endless consumption. "Why are you helping her?" Zephyra asked. "Because that is what humans do," Sarah answered. "We help people who are broken, even if they tried to hurt us first." On the screen, the Queen's ship began to change. Instead of the hungry black metal that had consumed so many worlds, it started to glow with warm light. Plants began growing on its surface. Windows appeared where there had been only weapons. "I feel different," the Queen broadcast, her voice softer now. "I feel individual." "Welcome to the club," Sarah replied with a smile. "It is scary at first, but you get used to it." For the first time in millions of years, the Devourer Queen was no longer alone in her own mind. She was herself, separate and unique and free to make her own choices, and her first choice surprised everyone. "I would like to try this friendship thing," she said hesitantly, "if the offer is still available." "Always," Sarah answered. "There is always room for one more friend." 6 months after the last Devourer ship chose freedom over hunger, Admiral Sarah Chun Okafor stood in the Confederation Council chambers on New Geneva. The room had been rebuilt since the war, bigger now to fit representatives from all the new species that had joined them. Dr. Zephyr Keth sat at her right side, wearing the silver badge that marked her as humanity's first alien ambassador. To Sarah's left sat Queen Vera, formerly the Devourer Queen, now calling herself by a name she had chosen for herself. Her appearance had changed too. Where once she had been a writhing mass of black metal and hunger, she now looked almost like a tall, elegant human woman made of starlight. "The reconstruction is going well," reported Chancellor Erie, her insect wings no longer buzzing with stress. "The planets that were consumed are being regrown. Queen Vera's people have been very helpful with that. We remember how each world tasted," Queen Vera said quietly. "We can rebuild them exactly as they were, but better. With permission, of course." It was still strange hearing the former Planet Eater ask for permission, but Sarah had gotten used to it. Vera learned quickly, and she seemed to genuinely enjoy her new ability to make friends. "What about the other fleets?" asked General Thrax. His scales were still red. but now it was from excitement rather than anger. The ones who chose to continue consuming have left the galaxy, Sarah reported. They found empty galaxies where they can eat dead stars without hurting anyone. The ones who chose to stay are helping with various projects. Such as, Sarah smiled, farming, apparently when you can turn raw matter into anything you want, you can grow really impressive vegetables. The laughter that filled the room would have been impossible a year ago. Former enemies sitting together, sharing jokes, working toward common goals. It was exactly what humanity had hoped for when they went to sleep 3,000 years ago. But there was still one more thing to discuss. The cosmic alignment happens tomorrow, Dr. Zephyra said, reading from her notes. Are you really going to do it? Sarah nodded. We have been preparing for this moment for over 3,000 years. The galaxy is finally ready. Ready for what? Exactly. Sarah stood up and walked to the center of the room. Around her, representatives from 12 species plus the reformed devourers waited to hear humanity's greatest secret. Tomorrow, when the stars align, a doorway will open, she began. Not to another place, but to another reality. Another universe where life evolved differently than it did here. The room was completely silent. For millions of years, these other beings have been trying to communicate with our universe. But their thoughts are so different from ours that contact usually drives people insane. That is why we waited. We needed the galaxy to be united, to be strong enough to handle what comes. Next, what kind of beings? Queen Vera asked, her starlight eyes flickering with curiosity. Beings made of pure mathematics. Creatures that exist as living songs. Entities that think in colors that do not exist. Intelligence so vast that a single thought takes 1,000 years to complete. General Thrax leaned forward. And they want to talk to us? They want to share knowledge, art, music that can heal broken minds. Mathematics that can solve any problem. Stories that have been growing for billions of years. Dr. Zephyra looked nervous. What if we are not ready? What if their knowledge is too much for us? Sarah walked over and put a gentle hand on her friend's shoulder. That is why we needed you, Zephyra, and all of you. Humans alone could never handle this. But humans working together with Altarians and Thraxians and Reformed Devourers and everyone else, together, we are strong enough. The next day, every ship in the galaxy gathered around the alignment point. Confederation vessels, human ships, and even the Reformed Devourer fleet all waited together as the cosmic event began. Sarah stood on the bridge of the Prometheus Unbound. But she was not alone. Through the neural network, every human in the galaxy was with her. And through the new friendship networks they had built, every allied species was connected too. Beginning contact protocol, she announced. The alignment reached its peak. Space itself seemed to bend and twist as reality thinned between the universes. And then slowly, carefully, something touched their minds. It was like hearing music for the first time, or seeing color after a lifetime of blindness. The alien thoughts were strange beyond description, but somehow beautiful. And they came with gifts, mathematical formulas that could turn any planet into a garden. Songs that could heal any disease. Stories that taught compassion and wisdom. Art that could make anyone feel less alone. But most importantly, they came with an invitation. The beings from the other universe were not the only ones trying to make contact. There were hundreds of other realities, thousands of different forms of life, all trying to connect with each other across the vast spaces between worlds. They want us to be ambassadors, Sarah said, her voice filled with wonder. They want us to help other young species make contact safely, the way we are doing today. Dr. Zephyra felt tears running down her blue-scaled cheeks. So that is why you waited. You were not just preparing humanity. You were preparing all of us. We were preparing the galaxy to grow up, Sarah confirmed. To become something bigger than any one species could be alone. Queen Vera spoke up, her voice filled with the same wonder that touched them all. "I spent millions of years consuming everything I could find, always hungry, always alone. But this this fills the hunger. Not with food, but with purpose." The contact lasted for exactly 1 hour. When it ended, the galaxy was changed forever. Not just by the knowledge they had received, but by the understanding of what they had become. They were no longer individual species competing for resources. They were a family working together to help other young civilizations across the multiverse learn and grow. Years later, when other galaxies sent their first tentative signals, asking for help, it was Dr. Zefra who answered them. She had become the galaxy's chief ambassador, teaching young species the same patience and respect that had once saved humanity's history. And when new threats appeared from the dark spaces between realities, it was Queen Vera and her people who stood guard, using their ancient hunger to consume dangers before they could reach inhabited worlds. The humans had awakened to find their galaxy invaded, and their legacy misunderstood. But in the end, they had gained something far more valuable than peace. They had gained a future worth dreaming about. Admiral Sarah Chin Okafor stood in her garden aboard the Prometheus Unbound, watching stars being born in the distance. Her great-granddaughter played nearby, learning mathematics from a being made of living music, while a reformed adorer taught her how to grow flowers that sang. Was it worth the wait? Asked Dr. Zefra, now old and gray, but still curious about everything. Sarah smiled as she watched her descendant laugh at a joke told by a creature from another dimension entirely. "Every minute of it," she said. The galaxy had knocked too loudly and awakened giants. But perhaps, for the first time in eons, it was finally ready for what came next.